4 tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Well, it's been a while since I've held down the fort and done a solo show, but hey, done it a few times. Fairly confident I can handle it. What's Matt doing, in case you were curious, in case you missed the very beginning of the show? And what the heck are you missing the very beginning of the show for? You know when we start. He and the family did kind of a flyaway family reunion sort of thing, went over to the Caribbean, and he is currently on his way back. So not knowing exactly where he was going to be at any particular point in time, he figured, well, we'll take the week off, this weekend off. And don't forget, he is going under the knife this week as well, which means he's actually going to be out probably for the better part of July. He's having a thyroid situation. He's having that removed. And that is, if you know anything about it, fairly close to the voice box. So they have told him to just rest the voice too. So yeah, I'll be flying solo for the next few weeks. Be prepared for that. Thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it, whether it's on the flagship station 95.1 The Mountain or on CRN Live on YouTube. There was a slight hiccup at the beginning of it, but producer John has gotten it fixed. I'll check it as often as I can and try and be part of that chat over there as well. But let's take a look at what happened last week real quick, get you up to date as we head into this weekend's racing. For the first time ever, NASCAR headed to Connecticut's Lime Rock Park Road Course, Craftsman Truck Series, and sometimes a road course can trip people up. It can trip up a regular series driver. But man, Corey Heim seems unstoppable this year. I want you to think about this. First of all, he claimed the pole. He rolls to the win. He led 99 of the 100 laps on the day. Gets win number 5 on the season so far. And that 5th win of this year. And think about how long Corey Heim has been in the Truck Series. Technically not long. He now has more wins in the Truck Series than 3-time Truck Series champion Matt Crafton does in his career. That shows you how dominant Corey Heim has been. It's not to say that things were all calm, cool, and collected. Final restart did cause chaos. Lane Riggs overdrove a corner. Matt Mills went off the course. Jordan Taylor, who we kind of thought if he could get that truck on the pole, probably that was good night. He was in his first Truck Series start trying to find a hole through turn 1 that on the final restart went in too hot. He took out some others, so he didn't do it. So here's your final top 10. Heim wins. Ty Majeski second. Gio Ruggiero third. Ben Rhodes fourth. And Cam Waters, the road course ringer, rounds out the top 5. Then you got Chandler Smith, Josh Balicki, Brent Cruz, Daniel Hemrick, and Tyler Ankrum filling out the top 10. As mentioned, Heim has 5 wins, far and away the number 1 seed. 2 wins for Chandler Smith. Your single-time winners are Lane Riggs, Daniel Hemrick, Tyler Ankrum, Stuart Friesen, and Rajah Caruth. They're all locked into the playoffs. And think about this. There are only 3 more races now left before we get into the playoffs for the Craftsman Truck Series. In on points right now, Caden Honeycutt, Grant Enfinger, and Ty Majeski. Majeski with a 38-point lead over Jake Garcia, which means, yes, it can be made up in one race, but that's not the easiest thing in the world. So it's really starting to pare itself down unless we get a surprise winner. And I'm not going to say that that's not possible. We'll keep you updated on that. Meantime, earlier in the year, we asked on the show which one was more likely. All Hendrick Motorsports cars would qualify for the playoffs, or all Team Penske cars would do it first. Turns out Penske did it first, even including the sister organization Wood Brothers Racing with Josh Berry, but Hendrick still wants all their cars in. Now they got 3 out of 4. Chase Elliott waited until almost too late. Almost. But he was able to work through traffic at just the right time, claims the lead, ultimately the win at Atlanta's Echo Park Speedway. Yeah, I'm still getting used to that. It ends a 44-race winless streak for the 9 car. Elliott bested Brad Keselowski, teammate Alex Bowman. Tyler Reddick was in there as well. Eric Jones, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Zane Smith, Ty Dillon, Chris Buescher, and Carson Hocevar making up the top 10. That is a very odd top 10, ain't it? Yeah, I know. Here's the thing. If you were one of the people that filled out a bracket, God bless you. Because ultimately, this race was probably really something of a demolition derby. 40 cars. We were at the limit. 40 cars started this race. Can only do 40 cars in the starting field of the Cup Series unless you have that weird little NASCAR approval thing. And nobody tried that. Nobody tried it for this weekend in Chicago, by the way. I'll get back to that. So 40 cars start this race. At the end of the race, only 3. Originally, the initial report said 9. But when all was said and done, they figured out that only 3 cars were not involved in some way, shape, or form or in a wreck at Echo Park Speedway at Atlanta last weekend. 37 out of 40 involved in a wreck. Doesn't mean that you had massive damage and you got knocked out of the race. It just meant that you were involved in some way. That's crazy. We get Talladega races that don't come anywhere near that. Updated standings. 3-time winners are Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, and Christopher Bell up top. Single-time winners William Byron, Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Ross Chastain, Chase Briscoe, Joey Logano, Austin Cindric, Josh Berry, and Shane Van Gisbergen. And all of those drivers are, at this moment anyway, locked into the playoffs. And time is running out here as well. Something that you got to keep in mind here as things wind down towards the Daytona race that will wrap up the regular season. In on points, Tyler Reddick, Chris Buescher, Alex Bowman, and Bubba Wallace. Only 4 spots left. Then there's Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece is 23 points behind Bubba Wallace for that final playoff spot. Shane Van Gisbergen's win really did upset the whole balance of everything. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Chase Elliott's did. Chase Elliott was locked into the playoffs on points. He was cruising. So we can figure that he was going to get into the playoffs one way or the other unless we did what I had predicted at the beginning of this year, in that I felt like we were going to get 16 winners by the time we got to the playoffs. It's still possible, mathematically. But I figured Chase Elliott was going to be one of those guys because Chase Elliott is too steady and just has this ability to put together these strings of really, really good races. So sooner or later, yeah, he's going to find himself in victory lane, and I knew it. Did I know where? No. Does it surprise me that it's Atlanta? Absolutely not. That's his home track. But the thing is as I'm looking at this, and we're looking at a bunch of first-time for this year race winners in a row, these spots are locking up real fast. And suddenly what looked to be really comfortable for Bubba Wallace, say, a month ago, is now him biting his nails. Same thing for Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece was looking really, really good about 4 or 5 weeks ago. And now all of a sudden he's on the outside looking in. And then you look at some of those other names that I was talking about. Alex Bowman, the 4th of the 4 Hendrick Motorsports cars. Chris Buescher, who won 3 races just a couple of years ago. And how has Tyler Reddick not won a race this year? I mean, could that change this weekend? Sure, it could. He's a very good road course racer. Street course. I don't know. Time will tell. This year's a little weird. That's why I made that prediction at the early part of this year. Let's turn to last Sunday morning in Austria. The question was, would Red Bull rebound and try to begin a second-half surge, trying to make a run at McLaren? And remember, again, this is the course they sponsor. It's called the Red Bull Ring. Would McLaren continue their apparent year of destiny towards titles? Well, we got the answer. Kimi Antonelli seemed to answer that for Red Bull's hope anyway. 4-time defending champion Max Verstappen and Kimi Antonelli tangled up, and both days ended early. We'll get back to that during Formula One news. Left the McLaren twins basically to battle it out for themselves. The Ferrari of Charles Leclerc held down the other podium seat. In the end, it was Lando Norris who stayed out front. His teammate Oscar Piastri and Charles Leclerc. Leclerc basically was hoping they would take each other out. They didn't. He settled for third. Leclerc was trailed by his teammate Lewis Hamilton, then George Russell. Liam Lawson was in there. Nice run for him. You know, that guy that got bumped out of Red Bull in favor of Yuki Tsunoda. Yeah, Liam Lawson gets a top 10. See if Yuki Tsunoda shows up in the top 10. All right, so 4th place, Lewis Hamilton. 5th place, George Russell. 6th place, Liam Lawson. 7th place, Fernando Alonso. 8th and 9th, the Sauber twins. Gabriel Bortoleto, the rookie scoring his first F1 title points of his career. Then his teammate Nico Hülkenberg in 9th, and the Haas of Esteban Ocon. Oh, sorry. Yuki Tsunoda, the guy who they replaced Liam Lawson with, not in the top 10 again. With his win, Norris does close the title race a little bit. Piastri leads him 216 to 201. Verstappen, scoring no points, sits third with 155. George Russell now has 146. Charles Leclerc's got 119. Lewis Hamilton still hasn't gotten to 100 points. That's just weird. He's got 91. Kimi Antonelli sits there with 63, 42 for Alex Albon. Esteban Ocon's got 23. Nico Hulkenberg is now one of the top 10. He's got 22 points on the year. McLaren continues to lead the Constructors' Cup. Their lead, a massive one. Almost double. They got a 417 to 210 point lead over Ferrari. Ouch. Mercedes sits at 209, so second place not locked down by any stretch of the imagination. Red Bull lags in fourth at 162 because the only guy really scoring points on a regular basis, when he's not wrecked, is Max Verstappen. Williams has 55. Racing Bull's up to 36. Haas F1 now has 29. They've gotten over Aston Martin. They've got 28. Then you got 26 for a suddenly resurgent Sauber, who could really start battling Haas F1 there. And Alpine has 11 points on this season, and they're making changes. Talk about that during the news, too. Final race of last weekend, NHRA. They rolled into Norwalk, Ohio for the Summit Equipment Racing Nationals. The finals and Top Fuel came down to a duel between Justin Ashley and Clay Millican. Ashley, big reaction time advantage. He cruises to the win, 3.931 ET at 317.34 miles per hour. Whole shot win. Millican's pass was actually quicker line to line, but that reaction time killed him. Ashley's win is second win of 2025, seventh of his career so far. Austin Prock making it to the finals for a second time in a row. This time he takes on Matt Hagan. Hagan quicker with the reaction time, but from there it was all Prock. He gunned his ride to a 4.064 ET, 318.54 miles per hour. Seems slow. It kind of is, but weather conditions really had a lot to say in that. That's, by the way, Prock's fourth win of the year, 16 of his career to date. Then you get to Pro Stock Car, Dallas Glenn, Corey Reed pairing off in the finals there. Reed, an almost perfect reaction time. Glenn loses the tires, has to shut it down. Reed's winning run, 6.648 ET, 207.30 miles per hour. Finally, an event winner. This is his fourth finals appearance of his career in the NHRA Mission Foods Drag Racing Series competition, and finally is able to claim that win and get that monkey off of his back. And in the Pro Stock Motorcycle Finals, if you thought Gage Herrera was going to make it, sorry. Richard Gadsden and John Hall make it to the Pro Stock Motorcycle Finals, I should say. Gadsden caught Hall asleep at the light. Hall overcame the disadvantage, powered past by the 330-foot mark. He looked, for all intents and purposes, like Gage Herrera, but John Hall gets his third career event win with those results. So here's your updated standings in the NHRA. Top Fuel has Tony Stewart still out front by 52 points on Sean Langdon. Justin Ashley, though, closing in. He's now 77 back. 187 down is Doug Coletta. Antron Brown, 218 back in fifth. Funny Cars led by Austin Prock, somewhat predictably. 127 over his teammate, Jack Beckman. Paul Lee's 192 down. Ron Capps, 209 out. Matt Hagan, 222 down. Greg Anderson has a 50-point lead on Dallas Glenn in the Pro Stock Car standings. Matt Hartford is 313 back. Then you got Corey Reed, 357 behind. Yes, this is just the top five. Eric Latino, 461 points down in fifth. Then you got Pro Stock Motorcycle. Gage Herrera still leads that, 96. Still fairly comfortable over Matt Smith. Richard Gadsden, 111 down. 272 out is Angie Smith. And with the event win, John Hall's fifth, 301 points out of first. So here's this weekend, your July 4th weekend of racing here in the United States, America. The racing will get rolling a little bit later on today. Xfinity Series in Chicago. It's the Loop 110. Airs on CW and MRN Radio, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 3:30 p.m. Central Time. This is that 12-turn, 2.2-mile-long street course in downtown Chicago over by the lakeside. Sunday morning begins over in England. Is it ironic at all that on the 4th of July weekend we talk about the British Grand Prix when that was who we fought for independence for 249 years ago? Okay. British Grand Prix, 18 turns, 3.2-mile-long Silverstone circuit. Airs on ESPN at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time. IndyCar will be up next. Honda Indy 200 at Mid-Ohio Sports Car. 13 turns, 2.25 miles long. Fox and IRN Radio have race coverage starting at 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central Time, and the final race of the weekend is the Grant Park 165 on the Chicago Street Course, same as Xfinity. TNT Sports and MRN Radio have the coverage of the race starting at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central Time, and then you got Formula E, the Craftsman Truck Series, NHRA, other series that we cover on a regular basis that are off this weekend. If Athena gets the opportunity, she may give some worldwide stuff if you happen to go check out things on CRN Live on YouTube. I haven't seen her just yet. So, yeah, me flying solo, Matt working his way back from the Caribbean, but again, he will not be back in time for really probably anything this month. So kind of like Formula E, he's just going to take a month off in the summer. How do you get that deal? Well, I have to admit, the only thing that I'm envious of him when it comes to this is this weekend, because he's coming back from the Caribbean, which he said getting in, not the smoothest process in the world. So maybe I don't need to be jealous of him. I don't know. But certainly not jealous with him going under the knife. I've been there. I've done that. Not specifically that particular surgery that he's talking about. But yeah, I've been under the knife. It ain't fun. Don't enjoy it. We're wishing nothing but the best when it comes to travels and for the surgery coming up this week for Matt. And we will hopefully have him back in studio either very late this month, maybe the last show of the month of July, but more than likely, I would think first show of the month of August. In the meantime, I'll handle it the best I can by myself. Who knows? Maybe I can find a co-host. Got a couple of people in mind. It's just a matter of scheduling it out right. Well, we got a lot of news to get to. We're going to do that with big news out of the world of the Cup Series. Silly season has begun in earnest, and one big name is out at the end of the year. We'll talk about it next.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. 2 tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Keith, you're right. Checking you out there on the chat on CRN Live on YouTube. What am I talking about? They gave Lawson a chance. They gave him a full 2 races. Yeah. I think that says it all there, doesn't it, Keith? Well put. All right, we'll get to Formula One news here in a minute. The big news of the week. And if you're fairly new to the show, this is something that producer John came up with. I have to admit, I was just doing it in the order of what I felt like, hey, this is the most popular series. So I was doing NASCAR, and then I would do IndyCar, and then I would do Formula One, and then we would add NHRA, right? And then John said, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we take the biggest story of the week and let's put that first, regardless of what series it is? And it was actually a very good idea. Well, as it turned out, this week, Cup Series news is the top one of the week. Trackhouse Racing announced this week they and the driver of the 99 car, Daniel Suarez, have agreed, use the Air Bunnies for that, that this is going to be their final season together. Now, here's the deal. Officially, they didn't name a replacement. What this does seem to do is pave the way for the heralded youngster Connor Zilisch. I'm going to get back to that part of it because while I think Connor Zilisch is talented, there could be problems there. As for Suarez, he's an Xfinity Series champion who's been a full-time Cup driver for a number of years now. In fact, he's got 305 Cup Series starts heading into this weekend. The problem is he's only got 2 wins. So far this season, he sits 29th in points without a win. This year, his 5th year with Trackhouse Racing. Don't forget, he was the team's very first driver when the team formed in 2021. He's made the playoffs twice, including last season when he got that win in Atlanta early in the year. Trackhouse Racing founder and co-owner Justin Marks said of Suarez, quote, "The role Daniel played in the Trackhouse origin story in its first 5 years will remain a valued part of the company's history forever. His commitment, work ethic, and dedication to the effort is one of the most impressive things I've personally seen in my career." Of course, what he didn't say is that we're still letting him go. Suarez, the first Mexican-born driver to claim a Cup Series win, make full-time in the Cup Series, and, by the way, just this last year became an American citizen, is one of a small number of drivers in NASCAR history to also claim wins in the Cup Xfinity, where he was in the 2016 title winner, and in the Truck Series as well. As for Suarez, he said of the decision, this, quote, "It's not the first time that I've been in this position. Definitely the first time with the Mexico race. But it's not the first time that I've been in the position that we have to win or be in the position that we have contract negotiation in the middle of the season. It's definitely a distraction, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it doesn't really matter. I'm trying to be as smart as possible, put all this stuff on the side, and just do my thing on the track." Now, you think, couldn't Trackhouse get him and keep him and still figure out a way? No. Trackhouse has 3 chartered cars, and by the new rules that NASCAR has instituted, unless you were Gibbs or Hendrick and grandfathered in, the limit that you have for chartered cars in your team is 3. Ross Chastain and Shane Van Gisbergen are both contracted beyond this year. And then, as I noted, there's Connor Zilisch. Zilisch is driving for Junior Motorsports full-time in the Xfinity Series this year. He's a Trackhouse Racing development driver. And there's been a whole lot of rumors about, hey, this charter is going to get moved here or there or wherever. We got a number of teams that are trying to expand to 3 or expand out from 1 to 2. And more than one have said if given the opportunity, they might take a run at Connor Zilisch just to see if he'd be willing to go and get up to the Cup Series. So I think this is a preemptive move on the part of Justin Marks and Trackhouse Racing to ensure that Connor Zilisch remains under their situation. Because Connor Zilisch, he's 18 years old. Okay? He's a young driver. He's a very talented driver. I'm not taking anything away from him there. He's a very talented driver, but he's a young driver too. And that brings me to my cautionary tale. Because we have seen drivers who are 18, 19 years old who have been given a Cup ride and they were thought to be the next great thing, and they didn't quite work out, at least not at the beginning. You remember when Tony Stewart left, joined forces with Gene Haas, and Joe Gibbs took that 20 car and said, well, we need a driver, and they had this little kid that had the nickname Sliced Bread, as in the next best thing or the best thing since. His name's Joey Logano. Now, we can look and go, okay, yeah, Joey Logano is a 30-plus race winner who's got 3 Cup Series championships. Guess what? None of that happened to Joe Gibbs Racing. It's a lot of pressure. Speaking of Joe Gibbs Racing, look at the kid that they got sitting in the 54 car right now, Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs has 100 starts under his belt, still has a goose egg in the win column. Doesn't mean that he's not a talented driver. It's just that he hasn't quite put it all together yet. And those are just a couple of drivers. There are many more who probably didn't even make triple digits in the numbers of starts that they made. I mean, heck, I just talked about it, and so did Keith on CRN Live on the YouTube chat, in that Liam Lawson is this heralded rookie that Red Bull has been developing for years, and he gets the shot at Red Bull, and they give him a couple of races and then go, oh, by the way, yeah, we're going to trade you out. You get to the top level of whatever series that you're in, woo, there's pressure there. And for Connor Zilic, who I think has a good head on his shoulders, don't misunderstand me here, but do understand that this is a lot of pressure for an 18-year-old kid who's, I don't think he will turn 19 until next year begins. Don't quote me on that, but I'm not sure that he will. But even if he is 19 when next year begins, that's still a lot of pressure for a 19-year-old. Because now you've got to come in and you've got to at least jump the hurdle of what Daniel Suarez has done. And I'm not saying that he can't, but I'm also not saying he can. Because, again, there's a lot of pressure there. Daniel Suarez is a talented driver. Daniel has already said he's got a couple of irons in the fire. And I have no doubt, given the proper opportunity, that somebody is going to hire him. But if you think about the teams that he's already been on, he's raced for Joe Gibbs, he's raced for Stuart Haas, and now he's raced for Trackhouse, amongst others, when we go back to his time in the Xfinity Series, what is now the Xfinity Series. He's been in some really, really good cars. And in 305 Cup starts, has 2 wins. Talent's only going to get you so far. And sooner or later, somebody's going to go, I need you in victory lane. And if you can't park that car in victory lane, I need to go find somebody who I think can. And that's the situation Daniel Suarez is in right now. Daniel Suarez is in a good position in the fact that he has backing. In other words, he can bring a check. It's not necessarily going to fill the entire year, but he can bring a check. And he can perform well. He might even occasionally get a win. But if you're looking for the next Kyle Larson or Jimmy Johnson or Tony Stewart or Jeff Gordon, Daniel Suarez probably isn't that guy. And that's no disrespect to him. Again, you think about what he did at Mexico City in the Xfinity Series in a junior motorsports car where he started shotgun on the field because of a problem in qualifying, and he ends up rolling through the field and claims the win. Think about what he did at Atlanta back last year in 2024. Matt and I were there at the track. We watched it. It was an impressive run by Daniel Suarez. He can wheel a car. But he needs to park it in victory lane more often. But that could be said for all of the cars over at Trackhouse. I mean, no disrespect to Shane Van Gisbergen, and we expected him to do well at Mexico City. And yeah, he put on a clinic. I expect him to do well tomorrow in Chicago. He's getting better at the oval tracks. How much more patience do you got for a guy who's in his mid-30s? Used to be mid-30s was nothing. You were in your prime. Go back 30, 40 years. Mid-30-year-old, they were in their prime. They had 10, 15, maybe even 20 more years easy. Now, 45 is old. Most of the drivers are out of the cars in the Cup Series by the time they're 40 to 45 years old. They start stepping out. They start thinking about stepping out. And he's coming in at 35 already, and he's only in his, third year of Cup Series racing and first full time? He's got to make up a lot of ground quick. Racing has become a much bigger pressure cooker, I guess might be the better way to put it. So I do wonder about this move. I kind of have to admit I saw it coming. Because if you think big of this development driver, and they have to because they started something that really isn't a thing in the Cup Series or in NASCAR. I mean, yeah, you get the Ford development drivers and they're trying to work their way up through, but you don't really have a team setting aside development drivers. For Trackhouse to do that, that meant that they didn't want to let this kid go. And that means somebody has to leave. It wasn't going to be Chastain. Shane Van Gisbergen's too new. Daniel Suarez is the odd man out when the music stops. RFK Racing has a big change that they got to make, too. They're losing a guy who has been a cornerstone of their team for 15 years now. Steve Newmark. Newmark has served as the president of that team since 2010. He's leaving. He's going to become the executive athletic director at the University of North Carolina. He'll take on that role effectively on August the 15th. And next summer, he will take on the position of the school's athletic director himself when the current one retires. No, I didn't go look and find out who it was. This marks a return, by the way, to UNC for Newmark, who said this, quote, "I've been incredibly fortunate to work alongside so many amazing people at RFK Racing over the past 15 years. It's been a true privilege to learn from and represent Jack Roush, John Henry, and the entire Roush and Fenway organizations. And I firmly believe that RFK is a great spot and poised for tremendous success both on and off the track in the years ahead. But now it's time for a new chapter. I'm heading back home to Chapel Hill to join one of the most respected and successful programs in college sports. Thrilled to be part of the UNC athletics program and look forward to joining Tar Heel Nation as we strive for wins and championships across all sports in the evolving landscape of college athletics. The basketball program, we well know. I mean, even though they're past the days of Dean Smith being the guy in the basketball court on the sidelines, you still got to look at what they've been able to do over the years with guys like Roy Williams. And now they've got Bill Belichick cruising the sidelines on the football field. He's mostly known for his pro stuff. Can he make that translate to college? It's worked pretty good in recruiting. Now it's got to work on the field. Guess we'll find out. But if you're interested in racing, there's an opening at RFK. Hope you've got experience as president, though, because I get the funny feeling they're not just going to install some green person off the road to do that. Let's see. Let's talk about this as well. We all know that Shane Van Gisbergen's first win in the Cup Series was at the inaugural Chicago street race a couple of years ago. But what's the future of that race, the Grant Park 165 Beyond this weekend? And the thing about it is that's less certain. Again, we're going into the third year of a 3-year deal, the first year of which was the only one that was guaranteed. The other 2 years were option years on both the parts of NASCAR and for the city of Chicago. As it turned out, both sides picked it up and were happy to do it. But now this year, as of the end of this race, the end of this weekend, that contract's complete. All NASCAR is saying about it is that, quote, talks are ongoing, unquote. Chicago track president Julie Geis, who happens to also be the track president of a little track in Joliet, Illinois called Chicagoland Speedway, said this, quote, "So really right now the focus is on let's execute a really great 2025. We'll continue to have the conversations with the city, but right now, honestly, the more consistent conversations are the planning conversations. It does appear that the city is not insisting on staying on or near the July 4th weekend." Jason Lee, no, not the actor, senior advisor to Chicago's mayor, said, quote, it may make more sense to move that event to a different weekend where we don't have as many demands on our law enforcement and other emergency personnel. It's interesting you say that. Every weekend is shooting gallery up there, but that's another story entirely. And Lee continues, and so that's definitely something we've contemplated, but there's also some constraints in terms of other events on the city of Chicago and on the NASCAR schedule. Geis was asked about NASCAR's initial thoughts on a street course race in San Diego. She said, quote, "We have multiple road courses on the schedule right now." So, I mean, I've not ever heard where it has to be one or the other. Seems that there's room. This event, we went into it that first year knowing full well it was proof of concept, and we showed that it was possible. NASCAR is insisting that initial doubters have been convinced about the benefits of being in downtown Chicago. I'm not one of them. Denny Hamlin does appear to be one of them, though. He said this, quote, "They've been up against it as far as conditions are concerned. Think about it. We've had rain the past 2 years. Monsoons, pretty much. The track has been good. It's been racy, passing zones, and the scenery is fantastic as far as the backdrop we're racing in. A lot of positives for the Chicago street race. It'll probably move around in the future, but it is in the mold in which I would like to see any street race as they continue to implement it in the future. I'm not so certain that this is a great series for street course racing. But if you're insistent upon doing it, I get it. Talk positives and negatives of it. Plus, I want to go back and talk about that track that's not too far outside of downtown. That track in Joliet, Illinois, called Chicagoland. Because, yeah, there are negatives. It's been sitting idle for a while. But there are a lot of positives, too, if you think about its length. Think about that.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. Fuel only, fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back into the show. I'm Steve West. Appreciate you joining me. Matt Nicholson out. He'll be back soon. We'll keep you updated on that situation. He's traveling back this weekend, but again, as I mentioned, he goes under the knife this week. So we'll keep you updated on his progress. Keith, you're right. I would love to see him go back to Road America. And who says that we have to go to major metropolitan areas? We made that case just within the last couple of weeks. If you think about our home track, just as an example, Talladega. Yeah, it's between two major cities. It's between Birmingham and Atlanta on I-20. It's not hard to get to, but at the same time, you're not just going into the city and getting right there, 5 minutes after you get off the airplane or whatever. It's not in a metropolitan area, technically. Darlington either. There's Florence, South Carolina that's not too far away, and yes, I-20, speaking of which, goes by Darlington, but you have to, once you get off I-20, go 15, 20 miles before you get there. Think of Rockingham. Think of North Wilkesboro. None of these tracks are in major metropolitan areas. It doesn't mean that they're not successful, though. You can have a successful race at a track as long as the track is good. And that brings me to Joliet, Illinois and Chicagoland. This is one of those tracks that when it was built, initially we criticized it. And I say we, not necessarily on this show, because that was actually before this show was in existence. But we, as NASCAR fans, we criticized it because it was just the latest in that 1.5 mile cookie cutter tri-oval 1.5 mile venue. You know, we already had Charlotte, we already had Atlanta, we had Texas, we had Las Vegas, we had Kansas, we had Kentucky. Remember them, kids? Ask your parents. All those 1.5 mile tracks, all made in the cookie cutter tri-oval look. Yeah, they all had slight differences in the way that they were set up, but they were still all 1.5 mile tri-ovals. But you want to know why? They were easy to build. They fit into a certain area that you didn't have to have so much acreage like you do a Daytona or a Talladega or a road course. So they were easy to build, and you could fit 75 to 100,000 people in the grandstands plus the infield. But now that we've changed into this Gen 7 car, it has taken all those cookie cutter tracks and actually made those races a little more fun. And I get Atlanta's kind of now a different animal with the higher banking and the speedway rules that caused, well, a demolition derby last week. But if you look at Chicago, you look at Texas even. Texas was being massively maligned. Las Vegas, all these 1.5 mile cookie cutter tri-ovals, the racing's better there. They have tailored these cars to be able to run there better and make better racing there. And now you've got a Chicagoland, which, yeah, it hasn't been touched really in a number of years, but it also means that the pavement, the asphalt, the track surface has aged. And what did we love so much about Atlanta before they repaved it and reconfigured it was the fact that it was a driver's track. It had aged so well, the drivers loved it. And it did create some interesting racing because you had a whole lot of strategy going into how are you going to do the pits? And how are you going to be able to make sure that your tires last long enough to get through a run? Chicago's now that way. So there are benefits to going to Chicagoland, which is a track that you own, NASCAR. You own it. You're paying the taxes on it, and you're just letting it sit there and rot in favor of going to a downtown course. Now, are there benefits to doing a downtown Chicago or San Diego or throw in a city's name to doing a street course race in one of these cities? Yes, there are. You can go to an area that you're not currently racing in, and as long as the city officials are happy to do it, you can put a city street course in there on a temporary basis, and you fill in the city that doesn't have currently a NASCAR race anywhere really, really close to it, a chance to get a NASCAR race. You want to go to New York City? If you can work it out and figure out how to race in some of those little tiny little streets, you can do it. If you want to go to San Diego, you want to go to Los Angeles, you can do it. You want to go to Seattle, you can do it. You want to go to, I mentioned New York City, you want to go to Boston, you can do that. Notice I didn't mention any southeastern states because we got tracks all over the place here that we can go to and that we love. Whether you're talking about North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, but maybe you go to New Orleans. You can do that. There's a lot of possibilities. You can travel all over the place if you really would like to and take this to a whole lot of different places. And that's the benefits of having a street course race. I get it. But is this car really set up to do that? I mean, it's better on road courses than what it has been, but at the same time, this car is really set up best And its strength is those 1.5 mile tracks that we've been talking about. The Atlantas, the Chicagos, Chicagolands, the Vegases, the Texases, the Charlottes. They've got a lot of stuff to figure out when it comes to this new schedule for next year. See where they end up going. A couple of other notes here when it comes to Cup Series. Kyle Larson lost his car chief last weekend at the Echo Park Speedway in Atlanta. His 5-car failed pre-race inspection 2 times. Finally passed on attempt number 3, but the end result was Jesse Saunders was ejected from the speedway. The 5-car lost its pit selection for the race, and if you think about it, we really didn't hear from him. He was not that much of a factor throughout the course of that race. Plus, he was one of the 37 cars of 40 that were involved in a wreck in some way, shape, or form, so that didn't help either. So I wouldn't go feeling that badly for Kyle Larson. Again, he's still the 1 seed in the playoffs. He's got 3 wins. And he's got more points than the other 2 drivers that have 3 wins, too. So he's in pretty good shape. Also, congratulations go out to 2023 Cup Series champion Ryan Blaney. Blaney announced this week he and his wife, Gianna, are expecting their first child later this year. It's a very short and simple media post. It says, quote, been keeping a secret far too long, but finally ready to share. Baby Blaney coming in 2025. Pick right now up on CRN Live on YouTube. It does so. There's one other one. You can see Ryan Blaney also there holding some of the sonogram pictures. But they didn't take the time to reveal the gender of the baby, and by the post, they haven't settled on a name. Or maybe they have, and, well, they're just keeping a secret like they have the fact that she's expected. So congratulations to them. And later on this year, hopefully we'll have more news for you on that and more good news. Let's turn our attention over to Formula One. Got plenty of stuff to talk about in that open wheel series. They, of course, released their 2026 schedule a couple of weeks ago. We detailed it here on the show. Now they're filling out some details. They let us know, for example, how the preseason practice schedule is going to go, because we got to get now 22 cars and 11 teams prepped for the season to come. That's right. Don't forget, Team Cadillac F1 coming in next year. Things are actually going to begin with no less than 5 days of testing at Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona, Spain, January 26th through the 30th. You can see the practice schedule right now on CRN Live on YouTube. There's an interesting note about that, which I'm going to get to. After that, teams will regroup. They'll travel to the Middle East. They'll get another 3 days of testing. The Bahrain International Circuit, February 18th through the 20th. All of that leads up to the season opening Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne, March 8th, officially kicking off the 2026 season. So there's actually 3 test sessions here. I missed the one in the middle, February 11th through the 13th, and then February 18th through the 20th, both of those in Bahrain. But let's go back to the Barcelona situation. We talked about how they're getting ready to go away. They've already run their race at Barcelona, and they're done. And one of the main reasons why is because Circuit de Catalunya was kind of grandfathered in. It's now considered grade 2 by FIA standards. And Formula One only runs on grade 1. So because of that, this is the opportunity for them to switch it. The thing about this independent test, and that's exactly what it is going to Barcelona, is the fact that the teams set up that one. Done independently by the teams and the race course officials. This testing will not be televised. That kind of sucks. Nor will the official times be made public. So in other words, we won't find out whether or not Cadillac hit on it, or whether Cadillac has a whole heck of a lot of work to do until we actually get to Bahrain. I get the funny feeling somebody probably somewhere will have a stopwatch and they'll leak it out. But those are all unofficial times, so we'll have to see how it goes. But it does, again, give the teams more time to get acquainted with the new rules regarding engines and aerodynamics. Again, first time the Cadillac hits the track in earnest. We'll find out how they fit. Plus, we don't even know who the heck they've got driving for them, and we know we are going to have driver changes. I'm expecting more changes out of the Red Bull category already. Another schedule note is a change for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, which, due to it being a national day on Sunday, September the 27th, when they initially were planning to run that race, they have moved the race back a day now. It's now going to run on Saturday, September the 26th. As we noted, Italy is back to 1 race a season. Spain's going to have 2, 1 in Barcelona, 1 in Madrid, and then that's the last year, I'm sorry, for Barcelona, and then they're done. Another note on future schedule shows the Austrian Grand Prix is going to be around for a good number more years. Signed an extension with Liberty Media, going to keep the race on the slate through at least 2041. Of course, joined Formula One slate back in 2014, was actually the host of multiple races in the COVID-affected 2020 and 2021 seasons when F1 got back into action. And this, by the way, matches Miami with the length of the contract reaching out the farthest. So congratulations to them. We talked about this a little bit on an early week edition of Crossed Flags, in that this is a vastly different way of looking at things for the current commercial rights owners of Formula One. And that, of course, is the American-based Liberty Media, as opposed to Bernie Ecclestone, who they got him from. Bernie Ecclestone loved to have a bunch of short-term contracts with all of these race organizations. 2, 3, maybe up to 5 years at most. And why was that? Because he could then say, your race isn't drawing the interest that we want, so we're going to go over here because these guys might have more interest. Or number 2, yeah, your race is doing well, therefore we're going to jump up the amount of money that you got to pay us every year to host an F1 race. And you could either sign it or not. Germany didn't. France didn't. United States did. But now you get into Liberty Media. Liberty Media seems more set on having stability, I guess might be the word for it. They are willing to say, you're willing to buy in with us over the long term, we're willing to let you. And therefore you get 15-year contract extensions for Miami and Austria. And you continue to get extensions through, like, what is it, 2031, I think they did with Canada earlier this year. Neither way's wrong, neither way's right. Me personally, I kind of like the Liberty Media way of doing things. I'd rather have the long-term stability to know you guys are going to be there long-term, instead of saying, well, I've got the chance of maybe getting some more money out of you. Because sooner or later, everyone says there's a selling price for everything. Now, I could sit here and look at you and go, this item, whatever that item is, this widget is not for sale. But then you start offering me money. Sooner or later, you're going to start offering me into an area that I'm going to go, okay, I'm thinking. And then you're going to hit a price that's just going to be, you know what? I can't refuse that. It's yours. Give me the cash. It's two different ways of looking at it. But me personally, I would like to know long-term, I've got a viability for it. I think I prefer myself Liberty Media's way of looking at things. But again, I don't think that there's any wrong way of looking at it.
Track east of Boga, Alabama. Classes include Cruza 602 LM Sportsman, Cruza Dirt Late Models, Talladega Sportsman, Cruza Modified, Factory.
tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back in. Hour number 2 getting underway here, talking a little Formula One. Speaking of which, they are just underway with qualifying for the British Grand Prix, so I'll keep you updated on that as we go along throughout the course of the show, as I remember, because, well, I'm flying solo, and as John has mentioned, or really his wife mentioned, thank you, by the way, for noting, I look tired. Do I look tired? I feel kind of tired, I'll admit to it. Fireworks in the neighborhood, never a good thing, because it tends to kind of, you know, it's something noisy that's outside of the norm, and it just kind of messes up with your sleep pattern. And then I do a morning show in downtown Birmingham Monday through Friday, which I get up at 3:34, and all of a sudden I just popped wide awake at about 3:45, and my normal Saturday time is about 4:30. So yeah, I didn't quite get as much sleep as I did. So it goes. Oh, Matt Nicholson checking in from the flight delay. Yeah, that's kind of what we're worried about. So again, F1 is set to go qualifying. We'll keep you updated on that. Let's talk about this year's Austrian Grand Prix and what happened there, why Max Verstappen didn't score any points at all. Kimi Antonelli got into Max Verstappen, took both of them out of the race. Antonelli and Verstappen talked. They cleared the air. Then the FIA stepped in and said that Antonelli's going to get a 3 grid spot penalty for this weekend's British Grand Prix as a result. So wherever he qualifies, he's going to start back 3 spots. If you're looking at CRN Live on YouTube, you can see right there coming out of that first turn where Kimi Antonelli is off the track along with one of the Sauber cars, who really, that's evasive action on the part of the Sauber car. It's the more white car that's right up on top of him. That right there is where you're kind of starting to look, because the white car is one of the Racing Bulls, and then on the inside of him, that'll be, I believe, Kimi Antonelli in the Silver Arrow Mercedes. And looking the wrong way, Max Verstappen. Oops. Causing a collision. I'm so glad this is not a penalty in NASCAR. But yeah, that's what basically the penalty is. It's for causing a collision. And the funny thing is that usually this is a 10-second penalty or something like that at the end of the race, maybe. But because of the fact that they went out so early and they're so far back in the finishing order from that race last week, they went ahead and put the penalty going ahead to this week. So again, three grid spots. So wherever he qualifies, he'll have to start 3 spots further back. Again, at the beginning of the race, Antonelli locked up his brakes. This was turn 3, slammed into the back of Verstappen's racer, caused enough damage to Verstappen. He was out of the race. Antonelli did continue on despite his damage. Stewart called them both to talk after the race, determined Antonelli was fully at fault, hit him with that 3 grid spot penalty after qualifying this weekend, and put 2 points on his F1 super license, but he is not in danger yet of coming anywhere close to having to sit out a race because of a number of points on there. Over at Ferrari, team principal Fred Vasseur left the course abruptly last Saturday. He cited only personal reasons. We still haven't found out what the whole situation is, but again, it's personal reasons, right? He turned the team over to former Formula E driver and team executive Jerome D'Ambrosio. D'Ambrosio is currently listed as Ferrari's deputy team chief. Did anybody know that? But despite claiming 3rd and 4th overall over the past weekend, Lewis Hamilton initially, I need to make sure I clarify that, was not happy with the overall strategy calls. Hamilton felt like his tires were in good shape, so when, with 20 laps left in the race, he got called to pit, he questioned it. It prompted D'Ambrosio to say afterward, quote, "In the end, it's nothing out of the norm. We tried to do as a team. What we tried to do as a team was to," Austria is very much like that, you try to get your optimal strategy. So, you optimize your race time, and that's what we did with both drivers. To be honest, there's no incentive in doing anything different because the McLarens are clearly far ahead. Russell, quite far behind. So we were in between them with both cars. We just did a standard optimal strategy, and that was the most straightforward thing to do. From a driver's perspective, the question is always, is it the best? Can we do something else? They're racers, they're F1 drivers. That's what they should do. That's what they do. But in the end, just show Lewis now, and you look at the numbers, and it's really what made sense. Hamilton said that after being sat down and talking it over and looking at all the film, he understood it better, said this, quote, "Yeah, I don't know how many laps there were, to be honest, at the time. Honestly, the pace wasn't looking great, but I felt like I could keep going. The balance was okay. Ultimately, I think, though, it was the right decision." I think about that. And it gets oversimplified in some ways. But if you think about, for example, the movie Days of Thunder, and later in the race, Robert Duvall, his character, Harry Hogg, is teaching his young driver, Cole Trickle, about the car. And finally, Cole Trickle gets on the radio, Tom Cruise's character, and he goes, when it comes to the car, I trust you. Go to the movie Bull Durham. Don't think, meet, just throw. Crash Davis's advice to his young hotshot pitcher who's, well, a wild child. Don't think, meet, just throw. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. I've got you. Just understand that I'm the one here helping you. That's what I'm here to do. We get it, Lewis. You're a 100-plus race winner with 7 titles to your name. Does that mean you know everything? Nope. Way to trust your team principal, even if he's the acting team principal. Speaking of which, Alpine's got a new one. They've named a guy by the name of Steve Nielsen, their former sporting director, to take over the spot. Now, earlier this year, team principal Oliver Oakes abruptly left the team. He's now former team principal, obviously. The team has been run for the most part by Flavio Briatore, who continues to be in charge of the team as a whole. But sooner or later, you're going to wear yourself out trying to do all things and be all things to all people, and Briatore finally understood that. Nielsen is set to begin in his new role officially when the summer break is over, September the 1st. This is actually kind of a reunion for Nielsen with this team. He moves back to the team. He had a role with Liberty Media. Before that, he was the FIA sporting director. But in this return, he used to work for Renault, the parent company of Alpine, when the organization won F1 titles in 2005 and 2006. He's coming back and hoping to kind of smooth the transition from being a works team to a customer operation. Don't forget, they're ending their engine program at the end of this year, and they will start taking on Mercedes engines as of the 2026 season. So they're also going to need help there. But again, Flavio Briatore's resume is impressive. But dude, if you're going to be the CEO of a company, you've got enough to deal with. Even if you're just the head of the racing operation, even if you're just the CEO of the Alpine F1 team, you've got enough on your hands and enough on your plate. Learn how to delegate. That's what leaders do. Go find people who are at least as qualified as they are, if not more so, and you put them in charge. That's the mark of a great boss. Find people who are at least as talented as you are, put them in charge of this particular department or that particular department, and let them do their job. Step in when they screw up. Okay, I get that. But if they ain't screwing up, don't mess with them. It's a sign of a good boss. It really is. And it's a sign of a happy workforce as well. If the bosses know that you are capable of doing this job and you do it well and they're not messing with you on a day-to-day basis, excellent. The morale gets high at that point in time. If the boss is micromanaging everything, thinks they know better than everybody else, morale tends to be lower, turnover tends to be higher. It's not a good thing. And when you look at the situation that Alpine's in, sitting in the basement with 11 points scored on the year, there's a lot of stuff wrong at Alpine, and they got to make some changes. This, I'm sure they're hoping, is the first in a line of things that'll be much better for their future. Talked about F1 the movie last weekend. It is a success in its first weekend. Their problem now, they've got a big test. They got to escape dinosaurs. Jurassic Park, the latest Jurassic World movie, actually is out this weekend, and so we'll see whether or not F1 the movie has long-term stamina. But the funny thing is there's already been talk about a sequel. There's crossover talk amongst the ideas between this and a potential Days of Thunder sequel. I'll get back to that. But then there's Sir Lewis Hamilton. Sir Lewis Hamilton was a consultant and executive producer for the film, and he's cautioning against rushing into a sequel. If you're looking at CRN Live on YouTube right now, Lewis Hamilton's the guy on the far right. That guy on the far left, you might recognize him. He's some actor by the name of Brad Pitt. In the middle, by the way, that's going to be the ultimate producer of the movie. So let's talk about what Hamilton had to say, first of all. Again, consultant, executive producer for the film. He is cautioning against rushing into a sequel. And I get this. He said this, quote, "We literally just finished it, so I think the last thing we want to do right now is a sequel." Talking about the media when he arrived at Silverstone for tomorrow's British Grand Prix, he said this, quote, "It's been 4 years in the making, a lot of work, particularly for director Joseph Kosinski. It's time away from your family. It's time away from your kids. You also need to just let this one simmer for a while. You know, just enjoy it. I think the worst thing we could probably do is rush into doing a sequel. Most sequels are way worse, so we don't need to rush it. And if we do a sequel, I think that we really, really need to take our time to get it even better." Added he's not against a sequel. He said this, quote, "Let's review what we did, what we could have done better." I don't know if they ever do that in the movie business, but it's something obviously that I have learned from here. And he's right. You rush into a sequel because of the popularity of the initial one. And if it's not based upon a book, you know, Hunger Games comes to mind. Most of the early James Bond movies were based upon books, right? So you had this basic idea of what the character was going to do and what they were going to be. But if you go in and you make a relatively original movie like F1 the movie, which is not based upon a book, it's got some experiences from F1 in the past, so it's got some loosely based upon historical facts, and you're just kind of jamming them all together in this movie. So you don't really have an idea of what you're going to do for a sequel. And the tendency when it comes to sequels, if they are thought up too quick and rushed into development, is that, oh, well, all of this stuff works, so let's jam a whole lot more of what worked into this film, and it turns out to become a big mess. There are all kinds of movies that can be pointed to for that. The reason why a movie like Top Gun Maverick made the success that it did was the fact that you had enough nods to the past to where we could go, yep, I'm comfortable here, but there was enough new stuff to make us go, wow, that's cool. So if you're going to make a sequel, take your time, get it right. Obviously, we found out that you can now make a sequel 3 decades after you made the first one. We're apparently going to try that with Days of Thunder, which brings me back to the initial thought of one of the possibilities. Even director Joseph Kosinski said this was a possibility. Maybe we could do a crossover between F1 and Days of Thunder. Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, they're about the same age. They've only appeared in one movie together, Interview with a Vampire. Questionable in its quality. But apparently they're really, really good friends. And while they were filming Interview with a Vampire, during their downtime, whatever that was, the two of them often would go out and go-kart, competing against each other. Brad Pitt even admitted Tom Cruise won most of them. So they're both into racing. So now you got Sonny Hayes, this elderly driver from Formula One and whatever other series, and Cole Trickle, this now aging driver in the NASCAR series. Maybe they had some commonalities in their early racing days. That's just a thought. And again, this is even from the director, Joseph Kosinski. I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't know when or if any of this is going to happen, because if I'm Tom Cruise, can I have that money? But if I'm Tom Cruise, I'm looking at this as the exact same way that I'm looking at Top Gun Maverick. You better bring a great script. You better bring something that's going to make me want to get back into the character of Cole Trickle. Same thing if I'm Brad Pitt. If I'm Brad Pitt, you better bring the goods in the script to make me want to get back into the role of Sonny Hayes. Because otherwise, we're just doing this as an obvious cash grab. And is the quality going to be there? My wife and I just sat down and we watched Jaws last night. Remember, this is 50 years of the movie Jaws. It was released 50 years ago this year. And then all of a sudden in the corner, as the credits start rolling, it says, coming up next, Jaws 2. Click, cancel that. I remember Jaws 2 not being anywhere near as good as the original Jaws. Why? Steven Spielberg wasn't involved. And when you take the director out of it because he doesn't think that it's the right thing to do, you got a problem. Let's go to his friend, George Lucas. George Lucas screamed onto the American psyche, not with Star Wars, but with American Graffiti. And American Graffiti became this big vessel for George Lucas to suddenly be able to go and have the panache to be able to make Star Wars. And then they said, but American Graffiti was such a success, we ought to go get another one. And George Lucas looked at him and said, no. Why would you do that? He was so uninspired by that, but his contract with the movie studio forced him to do it. And if you watch the movie More American Graffiti, you can just flat out tell Hart's not in it. So if you're going to make a sequel, I don't care whether it's crossover or not. Take your time. Hamilton's right. Take your time. Make sure the script is right. Make sure it's worth making. Otherwise, don't do it. I go all entertainment roundtable on you on that? 2025 Global F1 Fan Survey is up and available now if you're interested. It's done in conjunction with the Motorsport Network, and that's one of the companies that we actually kind of gather all this news for this show with, motorsport.com. Previous surveys included well over 100,000 responses from some 190 countries. This year's is now available. Go on to Formula1.com and just look up Fan Survey 2025, or you could go fansurvey2025-formula1.motorsportnetwork.com. I know. Just look up Fan Survey. You can find it in anything. When we come back, last week we talked about how Carlos Sainz Sr. removed his name from potentially running for president of the FIA. And last week that meant that right then, at that moment in time, we only had one candidate for the FIA presidency, and that's the incumbent, Mohammed Ben Sulayem. Well, as much as America's been getting involved in Formula One here, could we get an American FIA president?
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. 2 tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back into the show. Formula One qualifying going on over at Silverstone in England, and right now, as Q1 is still going on, the guys who are on the hot seat, both Alpines, there's a shock, Pierre Gasly, Franco Colapinto, 20 and 19 respectively. The Sauber guys who were in top 10 form last time at Austria are currently in the back of the pack. Nico Hülkenberg is 18th, Gabriel Bortoleto is 16th, split only by Esteban Ocon from Haas F1. Still a little bit of time left in Q1. We'll keep an eye on it for you. Even though it's not going to be Carlos Sainz Sr., it does appear that Mohammed Ben Sulayem is going to have at least one opponent. BBC reported this week that a gentleman by the name of Tim Mayer. Tim Mayer is a former F1 race steward. He's also the son of former McLaren team principal Teddy Mayer. He announced yesterday he was going to run for the position. Now, something interesting to note. Mayer would be, if he were to win it, the first American to hold the position. The news conference was indeed scheduled for yesterday before the first practice session, and this would get him back into the FIA front offices. He's 59 years old, told the BBC this week he actually got fired by Ben Sulayem as an assistant to Ben Sulayem. He got the notification, he said, by text message. I got to talking with an old friend, somebody who I haven't talked to probably, 3 years, maybe longer. And we got to talking about a mutual friend of ours, somebody who was involved in this show a long time ago. I'm not going to name names. You can figure it out. Producer John goes, I know. So does Matt, who's checking us out from stuck in the Bahamas. Tough place to be there. And she said, yep, haven't heard from him in a couple of years. He just picked up and moved. Some people know how to burn bridges. Some people know how to nuke bridges. Never going to be able to redo them. Mohammed Ben Sulayem seems to be that kind of guy. If he is going to cut ties with you, he is going to absolutely obliterate any ties with you. By text message? That's like breaking up with your wife of 30 years. Oh, well, I want a divorce. By text message? Really? That's how you're going to do it? Dude, be a man, be a woman. I don't care which one it is. Be a man or be a woman about it. If you're going to say, hey, we need to split, do it face to face. Have the guts. Have the intestinal fortitude to actually do it that way. At this point in time, I'm actually kind of rooting for Mayer. I think it'd be cool to have an American president of the FIA. I think it'd be fun. On a lighter note, Formula One's got an official whiskey. Who knew that was a thing? It's going to be formally announced with the help of actor Harrison Ford. The whiskey is called Glenmorangie, and it's a deal set for a decade. Harrison Ford's the main actor in a short film called A Short Time in Scotland. It can now be seen on glenmorangie.com, GLENMORANGIE.com. You can see the picture of him holding the bottle of it right now on CRN Live on YouTube. I've never tried this. I don't know how high-end it is. But I'm getting the funny feeling if it's Formula One, it's not exactly the cheapest whiskey on the planet. If anybody's tried it, let me know. I'd be interested. A former co-owner of the McLaren race team, his name is Mansour Ogier. He passed away back in 2021. So why are we talking about him now? Well, it seems that guy built up a collection of rarely used McLaren street cars. About 20 of them. 20 of them are set to go up for sale by the family here in the very near future, and they have hired a noted classic and historic car dealer, Tom Hartley Jr., to facilitate the sale of these vehicles, and he believes that the sale is going to net some $70 million U.S. in returns because the collection, well, it's a bunch of rarities. The very last F1 McLaren street car produced is included in that. All of these cars are dressed in a color that's just off of the McLaren signature papaya orange. It's a color that the company termed Mansour orange. Every single one of these 20 models, and there is a picture of them right now up on the Bahrain International Circuit on CRN Live on YouTube. All of those cars that you see are the very last model built on those particular chassis. And all have been barely to totally unused editions that were maintained by the engineers at McLaren themselves. Ouch. And that's a color that wasn't available to buy by the regular public. That was a color made specifically for him. $70 million? I want to say no, but unfortunately I can actually believe that because I understand a little bit about the collector car market and why that's such a rarity. To have the very last model of that particular chassis line ever produced and in a car in a color that nobody else has, and the fact that they're basically unused. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Documentary series is being worked up about the formation of the Cadillac F1 team. That's not a surprise. In fact, it shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. But here's the thing. The access that they got. Let's go back to F1 the movie for an example. The amount of access that they got to be able to have those cars on the track during actual Formula One practice sessions made the racing action in F1 the movie that much better. Now you get exclusive access from parent company TWG Motorsports, used to be Andretti Global, and General Motors, documenting how the team went from the official approval to joining the grid with the season opening Australian Grand Prix in 2026. And oh, by the way, it's going to be hosted / narrated by noted actor Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves, already kind of involved in this. He was the host, narrator, and actually one of the producers of the Braun GP documentary, which you can catch right now on ESPN Plus or Hulu if you have either one of those. The producers say they're not actually going to document that first race next year at the Australian Grand Prix, but instead did have plans to air the docuseries just before the beginning of the 2026 season. Again, that'll be Australia, down under, March the 8th. Reeves said this week about the Cadillac F1 documentary, quote, "I'm very honored and excited to be part of telling the remarkable Cadillac F1 team story and its incredible journey into the world of Formula One racing. Our goal with the docuseries is to bring audiences into the heart of this journey and showcase what it takes to participate in one of the world's most exclusive sports arenas." I'm looking forward to this. I love learning about stuff like that. The Braun GP documentary was very, very well done. So if they can do anything along that level, they're going to be in really good shape. Turning to IndyCar, and this is kind of a neat little crossover between F1 and IndyCar because while technical alliances are nothing new in motorsports, crossing over from one series to another, okay, not totally unheard of, but it's not normal. And that's why this week, Juncos Hollinger Racing's noted desire to work with possibly an F1 team made the news. It's co-owner Brad Hollinger. Again, he's suddenly become very vocal over there. He just mentioned that he's actively seeking a third partner in ownership of the team. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Now he said he'd like to work with another team in order to see his team improve their on-track performance and therefore their place in the standings. And since many of the current IndyCar teams already have technical alliances with other IndyCar teams, Hollinger says that he thinks working with a current F1 team might actually be beneficial to both sides. What's the ultimate reason? Well, maybe it's actually to kind of work around the rules. I mean, what's that famous phrase that we talk about when it comes to racing? You don't read the rule book for what is in there. You read the rule book for what isn't. So you figure out a way to work around the rules of the, for example, 2021 instituted F1 budget cap. Prior to investing and becoming a co-owner of Juncos Hollinger Racing, I apologize. I keep getting that wrong. Hollinger was a co-owner of the Williams race team before it got sold to Doralton Capital. It's through those connections he feels that an alliance between an F1 team and an IndyCar team is not only time, but could happen sooner rather than later. He said it would also help develop new and younger mechanics and engineers for open-wheel racing, young talent that would likely get it started in IndyCar and then be able to move up to Formula One, and in return feels that the F1 team could give his car, his IndyCar operation, knowledge that they would not have been able to gain prior to that. And we've wondered how much crossover there could be between IndyCar and Formula One. A lot of F1 drivers that have come over to IndyCar have said that in a lot of ways, the IndyCar racer is a harder drive than the F1 car that they got out of. So maybe there's some things that could be learned on both sides there. It would also help develop many other things. Hollinger talked to Racer.com this week, said this, quote, "Because of the cost cap in Formula One, there's certainly an opportunity to create a relationship with one of the Formula One teams and from a collaboration of technology, send them over some younger mechanics and engineers that they don't have to worry about the wage gap and the cost cap We would definitely benefit significantly by the outrageous amount of RD&E, or research, development, and engineering, that Dave do. Dave O'Neill and I have talked about that, and he's got some strong relationships from his former life there, and I feel I have a good relationship still with Williams. I'm not saying that there's been any interest from any of those teams, but it is something that we are exploring. I don't know which of the teams would be the most obvious choice in this, but if I'm an F1 team and I get a knock on the door or a call or a text message from Juncos Hollinger Racing's Brad Hollinger, and he says, hey, we'd like to talk about this and maybe strike up some sort of a deal that we think might be mutually beneficial, I'm going to listen. Am I going to jump on it? Not necessarily. But I'm certainly going to listen. And I'm going to take in the positives and the negatives, and I'm going to weigh them out. I think JHR certainly can benefit from it, because any information that they could get that they wouldn't otherwise have available to them, certainly going to help them out, because they're a team that's trying to, if we take the F1 terms, they're trying to get from the third tier into the middle tier. I know that ultimately they want to win a championship, but you got to walk before you can run. And Juncos Hollinger Racing is still pretty much crawling. They get a couple of great finishes here and there, but they're not consistent by any stretch of the imagination. So instead of doing everything the same that everybody else is doing, why don't we change things up? And maybe that benefits us. If it hurts us, we haven't really changed our way of looking at things. So if our performance continues to lag, we tried it, it didn't work, thanks, and we'll move on and try something else. But if you continue to do what you've always done, you continue to get what you always got. And that's why I think what Juncos Hollinger Racing is thinking about doing might actually be beneficial to them. Then there's this car. It's a pretty cool looking car. Meyershank Racing. They've had a long-time collaboration with their partnership in Sirius XM Satellite Radio, and that has brought them to their latest music-inspired look that they're going to run this weekend at Mid-Ohio. In the past, they featured artists ranging from the likes of Bon Jovi to Diplo. I'm talking about two vastly different artists. That's on the number 60 racer of Felix Rosenquist, and as you're going to see on CRN Live YouTube here in a second, that look is going to be black and purple this weekend, featuring the likes of Black Sabbath and its noted former lead singer Ozzy Osbourne, who happens to be back with the group for a special concert tonight in England. Osbourne set to front Black Sabbath in a show titled, quote, Final Show at Back to the Beginning. And they're highlighting it on that car, and that's a pretty good-looking car right there. Yeah, I don't like that. I don't know if that's going to be aired live on Sirius XM Satellite Radio or not. We'll find out. If so, and you have Sirius XM, check it out later on this evening, probably on Ozzy's Boneyard, because I know that that's a channel. And then you can probably check it out on the app if you happen to have that. Speaking of Meyershank Racing, former engineering department executive and a guy on Felix Rosenquist's team, he has not really gotten very far, but he actually has been promoted over at Andretti Global. Dave Seifert. Seifert has been named the engineer for the number 28 of Marcus Ericsson. He replaced Olivier Bolson, who has been moved into a role in the Andretti R&D division. Teammate Kyle Kirkwood's been performing well this year. In fact, he has one of only two drivers that's actually got a win this year. He's got 3 wins on the year. He's sitting second in the standings. The other Andretti racer not doing too bad, Colton Hurtis, sits 10th in the standings. Something's got to be done for Ericsson because he's 21st in the standings going into this weekend, and they've only got 8 races to go. So, yeah, something's got to happen over there. That's, by the way, how they're going to look today at Mid-Ohio. A whole lot of Fox Sports on there. Good-looking car. Question is, are they going to show it much? Because if you're not running up near the front, not really a whole lot of reason to show it, even though it's right there for you to be able to talk about when it comes to your own network. It's like self-promotion right there. But if you ain't running up near the front, better figure it out. So they made a change. I wonder if this is something that Meyershank Racing regrets letting him go, by the way. A little NHRA and IHRA news here. Now, Toyota, as we noted during the offseason, is in their final year as an official participant in NHRA competition, but they might have tipped their hat on what might be coming next. For example, we talked about this during Crossed Flags this week. I'm going to go ahead and reiterate it because I think it's important to mention here because this could lead into some interesting conversation. They're joining in as a foundational partner for the first ever Arlington Grand Prix IndyCar race next year. And you're going to see this on CRN Live on YouTube. This is their banner that they came up with. Grand Prix of Arlington, IndyCar, and Toyota. And you think, Toyota? The two engine makers are Chevrolet and Honda. We'll get back to that. So this is going to break the single-make Toyota Gazoo Racing GR Cup Series in as a participant during the race weekend next year of the Arlington GP. They're going to run 2 points races that weekend. But I keep thinking about this because you're pulling back out of the NHRA, and it's not ridiculously expensive to participate in the NHRA. We've talked about that. But at the same time, you're spending a whole lot of money to develop an engine program for the NHRA. Now, all of a sudden, you don't have to worry about that at the end of this year. A couple of teams have said, yes, we're going to continue to use Toyota bodies and engines through next year, even though we don't have factory support. But that'll give us, what that's going to do basically is just give us more time to use the equipment we've got, number one, and number two, more time to figure out who we're going to shift over to, whether it's Dodge or Chevrolet or Ford or whoever it is. But what does this mean for Toyota? Could they be thinking about getting into IndyCar racing? Now, they haven't said specifically, but it is interesting to know. Again, you take this money, and it's about the same amount of money to develop an engine for the NHRA as it is to develop an engine for IndyCar. And IndyCar has said that they're looking for at least one more engine manufacturer to take some of the heat off of Honda and Chevrolet, which are stretched almost to the breaking point. And if you think about it, apparently Chevrolet's broken in some way, shape, or form because they haven't won a single race this year. Honda has dominated by winning all the races so far this year, all 9 of them, with 2 drivers, the aforementioned Kyle Kirkwood and Alex Palou. So Chevrolet needs to figure out something. But at the same time, IndyCar, again, has said, we don't want to stretch these guys so far that they want to get out. And then it really leaves all of the onus onto one team, one engine manufacturer? No, we don't want to do that. So they've been actively going out there seeking a third and maybe even a fourth engine maker. Could Toyota be that? Maybe. The other thing to think about is the fact that they not only have that partnership with this race as a foundational partner of the Arlington GP, but they're also in a partnership with Haas F1. Maybe they're thinking about going back into Formula One. Not as a full works team, which didn't work for them about 20 years ago, but could they get in as an engine provider? Not saying it's out of the realms of possibility. The other guys, the IHRA, have announced plans for ways for fans to check out their races. They got themselves a broadcast partner. It's called Speed Sport 1 and their Speed Sport 2, which is their digital streaming service, and you can also see it on IHRA.com. What this partnership is going to allow for is for other streaming platforms to be able to pick up these well-produced broadcasts, and you'll be able to see them, as you can see on CRN Live on YouTube, from several partners, including Amazon Prime, the Roku channel, Pluto TV, Sling, all those other ones that are up there right now. So there's a way for you finally to be able to check out the IHRA competition, which is going to get started in earnest this coming weekend. We haven't been including them in our scheduling because really it's been kind of the lower levels, if you will, of the IHRA. But this weekend, this coming weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend technically, they're going to get into their season in force and we'll start to cover their schedules. As for who's going to be talking about it, Ken Stout has been named the play-by-play man. Former NHRA Funny Car champion Tommy Johnson Jr. is going to be their color analyst. Guy bringing his years of racing expertise in as a race day host, no less than Ralph Shaheen. That's a nice pull. Pits are going to be covered by 2 Kristens, Kristen Beat and Kristen Blank. Production is going to be handled by a group called Windy City Creative Group. I'll be interested to see how good their production value actually is. And finally, sad news from the world of drag racing, the passing of 1973 Top Fuel champ Jerry Ruth. Ruth began in the lower ranks of the NHRA way back in the early 1960s, moved up into Top Fuel for the 1964 season, and then decided, you know what? Top Fuel's not enough. So I'm going to run Top Fuel and Funny Car. Okay. From 1964 through 1972, he was so dominant in the Northwest Division, it prompted a local sports writer up in the Northwest to dub Ruth, quote, King of the Northwest in a 1965 article. That's right, only a year later. In his time, 64 to 72, Jerry Ruth claimed 8 Top Fuel and 3 Funny Car titles. And then he began racing in national events. He claimed 3 wins overall, including the NHRA World Finals in 1973, and that helped him clinch the Top Fuel title that year. He commissioned a gentleman by the name of Val Swindoll to build him a new cockpit designed around a shoulder hoop off of the Funny Car roll cage in 1980. Despite initial pushback due to the looks of it, other drivers turned to it within the next few years, and that is effectively what you see now in Top Fuel. You can, if you're looking at CRN Live on YouTube, you can see he's kind of sitting in front of that hoop that we were talking about a minute ago. That is now the norm in the NHRA. That year, he claimed the final win of his career, by the way, Mile High Nationals. That was 1980. He retired at the end of 1984. He's survived by his wife, Cindy, and his brothers, Bill and John, preceded Jerry in death. Jerry Ruth, 87 years old. Our thoughts and our prayers out to his family and his friends. We're far from done. One more segment to go. Xfinity, Craftsman Truck Series news, and some news from the world of Formula E on the way. Stay close. Alpha Prime Racing has turned to the ARCA Menard Series for another hotshot youngster. We'll see how good he does. He's actually got 2 races to prove himself. Could it mean that he's going to get an Xfinity Series ride in the future? We'll tell you who it is and what his opportunities are when we come back for the final segment of this week's CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. Fuel only, fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
All right, so taking a look at what happened in Formula One, the Q1 is over. Those eliminated: Franco Colapinto of Alpine, Nico Hülkenberg of Sauber, Lance Stroll from Aston Martin, Gabriel Bortoleto from Sauber, and the Racing Bulls driver Liam Lawson. As for round number 2, which is underway currently, his teammate over at Red Bull, Yuki Tsunoda, not faring much better than Lawson. He's 15th right now. Pierre Gasly, 14th. Charles Leclerc, 13th. Kimi Antonelli, 12th. And Lewis Hamilton, 11th. They are very early in Q2, so don't put a whole lot on this right yet. And I'll give you an update before we wrap up the show here in about a dozen minutes or so. In the meantime, from the NHRA, we go to Xfinity and Alpha Prime Racing. Going to give an ARCA Menard Series regular by the name of LeVar Scott a shot in an upcoming Xfinity Series race. He's actually going to get 2. His first one's going to be at Dover. This is part of a 2-race commitment sponsorship, including a group by the name of Fox Teca. Company's going to be a secondary sponsor for the race at Dover, and then they'll be the primary sponsor for the second race, which will be at Worldwide Tech Raceway at Gateway on September the 6th. A little bit of information about Scott, who you may or may not have heard of. Pretty hotshot kid. He's 2024 Rookie of the Year in the ARCA Menard Series, placed second in the final points. Alpha Prime team president Tommy Joe Martin said of Scott, quote, "We've been really lucky to have some great young drivers come through our team. I'm very excited to be adding LeVar to our roster. He's come through the same development ladder as Raja Karuth with Rev Racing. You can see how competitive he's been in the ARCA Menard Series the past few seasons at all different types of racetracks. He's got all the intangibles, too. Great attitude, work ethic, very humble. He's going to go far. And it's a big deal for me and Cesar Baccarella, his co-owner at Alpha Prime, to be able to create a team that gives opportunities to drivers like LeVar." And I like the fact that they are willing to be that stepping stone, or that, I don't know what you want to call it, that first opportunity, maybe, for drivers to be able to step up and get their feet wet in Xfinity Series competition. But at some point in time, if I'm either of these two guys, Tommy Joe Martins or Cesar Baccarella, I'm thinking I want more than that. I mean, do I want to just be that way for a driver to get their feet wet in the series and then go on and run for somebody else like a Junior Motorsports or a Joe Gibbs Racing or whoever? No, I think I want to be that team that they're going to be at permanently. So I don't know what the mission statement is for Alpha Prime Racing, at least in the short term. But if this is their long-term plan, you're in a situation where you're kind of going to be a backmarker for a while. And I hate that because, again, you think of some of the talented drivers that they have had come through. He mentions Raja Karuth. Now we got this kid, LeVar Scott, and I don't know ultimately how talented he's going to be. I don't know how high his ceiling is. But if you feel this much about him, maybe you want to try and figure out a way to get him on long term. And that might be the cornerstone that helps build your operation into more than just a mention every once in a while because, oh, by the way, this driver has got a shot and Alpha Prime is giving it to him. Over to the Craftsman Truck Series, and Tony Breidinger's got herself a new role, first for NASCAR, ambassador. I don't usually use that term a whole lot here in the world of NASCAR, but she has been named the official summer ambassador for Dave & Buster's Restaurants. Marks the first driver partnership with the restaurant and arcade company. Through this month and next, she'll be visiting several locations. She will sport the brand on both her track and her fire suit, no word about her swimsuit from Sports Illustrated, on next month's race at Watkins Glen. Fans are going to get the chance to win prizes from the merchandise collection via social media, plus there will be giveaways at all the locations. In addition, through 5 racing games that are going to be played throughout the month of August, fans will have a chance to compete with Breidinger in what they're calling a leaderboard challenge. The games included in the challenge are Hot Wheels Victory Lap. I've never heard of these games. Hot Wheels Victory Lap, NASCAR Pit Stop, Top Gun Maverick. I didn't know there was a video game for that. Cruisin' Blast, and Superbikes 3. I've heard of Superbikes. I didn't realize they were up to a 3. So there you go. Tony Breidinger reaching out to the fans. See whether you like it or not. Since it debuted, we really haven't talked about this, but there is that NASCAR Classics library out there where you can go and you can check out old races dating all the way back basically to the beginnings of NASCAR if there was, if they happen to be lucky enough to have filmed it. So we haven't talked about it really since its debut, but as a reminder, it's still available to you, classics.nascar.com. And this includes not only Cup Series, but what we now call the Xfinity Series, the Truck Series as well over the years. And this past week, they added 4 races that they previously thought were quote-unquote lost. They didn't appear anywhere. They weren't on YouTube, sometimes due to legal reasons in many cases. In other cases, at least one of them, they didn't realize the tape existed of the race. They thought it had already disappeared and been copied over, for example. So the 4 races amongst the ones thought to be missing: 1996's DeVilbiss Super Finish 200 that happened at Nazareth Speedway in Pennsylvania, first ever race for the Truck Series at that track. Then there was the 1997 Haynes 250 from Martinsville, 1998's Chevy Trucks 150 at Phoenix Raceway, and the 1999 Napa 250 at Martinsville. Currently on the site, which started with just over 1,000 races, they're now up above 1,500 on that site, and more are being added on a regular basis. So if you haven't checked it out before, might be worth it to go check it out. Again, all top 3 series are available there. Just depends. You got to do a search. If you've got a particular race in mind, you never know. Might actually be on that site. And we've noted this, and it's something of a criticism, but at the same time, we get it. Because it's very difficult to start talking about the number of thousands of people when you start talking about grandstands and the infield and trying to get an exact number. So NASCAR doesn't generally release attendance numbers for their races, but Lime Rock Park officials, without divulging the exact numbers, are stating that last week's first ever Truck Series race at the Connecticut Road Course broke all previous track attendance records for any event in its history. It's been around for a while, too. Track officials stated the previous record holder for attendance at Lime Rock for an event was in 2023 when it hosted an IMSA race. They added that the fans traveled to New England from all over the United States. Lime Rock Park president and CEO Dickie Regal said this, quote, "There's no question about it. You couldn't walk Spectator Hill. There was no room for another chair unless you were just too low or around the corner where you couldn't see anything. This place was absolutely packed." And what we've noted about this is you get specific races. And Talladega is a prime example of this because I get the chance twice a year to talk to track president Brian Crichton on the air. And we talk about the upcoming race, generally about a week and a half beforehand. And they keep up, as most tracks do, with where the people are coming from. In other words, you buy a ticket, you figure out where they're coming from. And the past several races at Talladega, we have seen people from 49 of the 50 states, if not all 50 states, showing up at Talladega for a race. And on top of that, 20 to 30 different countries. So no, it's not unheard of. For a Truck Series race, it's a little surprising. But when it comes to the fact that these guys have a NASCAR champion 3-time in their own backyard, Joey Logano was born there. And you'd be surprised how much stock car racing is actually very popular in New England. It's not terrifically surprising for me to believe that when the Craftsman Truck Series show up at a track they've never been to before, in a state they've never really been to before, certainly not the Truck Series, they're going to turn out in droves. And Lime Rock Park is a well thought of, fairly short road course, but a well thought of road course as well. So we'll see whether or not they come back. Again, we haven't seen anything yet on what's going to happen for the schedule next year. There's a lot of rumors being floated out around there, not a whole lot of something solid. So we keep waiting. And again, this is July. I think we might start hearing a little bit more next month, but I'm really not anticipating seeing the 2026 schedules for any of the top 3. And generally, they release all 3, Cup, Xfinity, and Trucks. And I get it, this is the last year of Xfinity as the title sponsor, but still. We generally will get them all at the same time. Or within a couple of days of each other. And when we do, we'll certainly detail them here on the air. Certainly the Cup Series looks like it's going to be a big change for a couple of things. Again, that Chicago Street Course race is in its final year. Looks like they're going to go back to Bowman Gray for the Clash. How does Rockingham fit in? Does it fit in, including the Cup Series next year? There's a lot of questions about that. Lime Rock Park is another one of those. Will the Truck Series go back, and will we add maybe the Xfinity Series and hope that at some point in time we might go there with the Cup Series? I don't know. It's going to be fun to watch. to Formula E, where Felipe Drugovich is set to make his debut in the series next week. Series is going to get back in action in Berlin. He's going to drive for Mahindra Racing. He's going to take the seat of Nick DeVries. Nick DeVries slated to take part in the 6 Hours of Sao Paulo race for Toyota in the World Endurance Challenge Series. So he'll be in Brazil. He can't be anywhere near Berlin. Can't do both. Drugovich has worked with Aston Martin in Formula One since 2023 after he claimed the 2022 Formula 2 title. In his role in Aston Martin, he's been both a reserve and a development driver, along with Formula E driver Stoffel van Dorn. Drugovich has never raced in Formula E, but he was part of the 2023 rookie test in Berlin and a rookie free practice session that same year. Both of those, though, were with Maserati, not Mahindra. But he was on top of the speed chart for both of those sessions against a number of other rookies. Now he gets the chance. We'll see how he does. And then Formula E officials overturned a penalty that was handed down to Sebastian Buemi following the Jakarta E-Prix. Found out about this just this morning. He made some contact with competitor Eduardo Mortara during the race, hit him, and in post-race, they slapped Buemi with a 5-second penalty. And it dropped him from third, a podium finish, down to 8th in the final standings and put Nico Muller on the podium. However, with the reversal, he gets his third-place finish back. Muller's maiden podium for Andretti ends up getting wiped out. What basically happened here is that his team brought new evidence, as they call it, some different viewpoints, some different camera angles that previously had not been available. I could spend a while talking about the not available part, but they said previous viewpoints from camera angles that were not available that showed that when the Formula E official said, well, he was already through the apex of the corner and he caused the collision, no. Turned out all the contact happened as Buemi had position going into the apex. So they realized that Buemi was not the man at fault, cleared him. So he gets a third place back, and that'll change the points. We'll deal with that next week when we talk about the racing. Wow, 2 hours flew by, even without Matt, who is currently, if you're not on CRN Live on YouTube, stuck in the Bahamas because of some weather that is in the general area, and it is keeping flights from being able to go anywhere right now. So he'll get home eventually. We wish him safe travels. My thanks to producer John for making me look and, well, sound as good as he possibly could on CRN Live on YouTube. And my thanks to you on our flagship radio station, 95.1 The Mountain in East Central Alabama, for putting up with me for the last couple of hours solo. I swear, I'm going to do better next week. Can I? Challenge myself. We'll find out. Y'all have a great week. Enjoy the racing this week. We'll do it all again next week. Don't forget about Cross Flags in the middle of the week as well. Producer John and I are going to be part of that. Matt, unfortunately, not going to be a part of it. So, Matt, safe travels, number one. Number two, we wish you all the best when it comes to the surgical procedure. Y'all have a fantastic 4th of July weekend, the rest of it. Our thoughts and our prayers go out to the people that were involved in the fireworks accident down on Lake Martin here in Alabama. Hopefully you were not part of that. But if you were, or you know somebody who was, all of our thoughts and prayers out to them as well. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Be safe. Have a lot of fun. And we'll talk to you again with Cross Flags this weekend and, of course, next Saturday right here as we bring you another edition of CRN, The Big Show. See ya.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.